These things are like tied to the election because, I mean, I think they are driving. Well, all right, you wanted to figure out who to vote for, is that?
Well, while we're talking about anti-utopianism,
Yeah,
let's talk about Joe Biden.
Okay.
Who's more anti-utopian than Joe Biden?
Okay, tell me more.
Well, it's like, I mean, so all the kids that are out there, joining Antifa now, like they were voting in the Democratic primary, and Joe Biden was not their candidate.
Yeah.
They were Bernie people.
Yeah.
Probably they were all Bernie people. I was trying to think, maybe some Warren, but I think Warren kind of appealed to a little bit more of a stable, and more a little older crowd than Bernie. So Joe Biden winning the Democratic primary was this giant kick in the face to the radical left of the Democratic
Party.
I
know how that went down. Do you think, was it just the median voter in the Democratic Party waking up and saying, wow, we can't have these extremists? Or did the party machinery kick in and favors were handed out and promises secured, and Biden was able to carry the day? Because I vaguely remember it was the South Carolina primary. Maybe there's some other ones, and he was able to scrape a win together there, and then that created momentum.
Yeah, then all the other moderate candidates kind of dropped out.
Well, that's right. They dropped out quickly, didn't they?
But he outperformed his polls, I think, in South Carolina first before.
Yeah. Oh, so maybe that was the machinery kicking in, right? That was the party saying.
I think that was, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think if you looked at the Democratic primary, the majority of the votes were behind so-called moderate candidates.
Yeah.
And so I think part of my thesis is, and there's just so much to talk about because I haven't talked this over with anyone. And it's great to do this. And we're getting all over the place, going all the way back to the primary. But it's just I had so much to say and I never said it. So put up with me.
Yeah, sure.
So you had a majority of the votes going towards moderate candidates, but my thesis is that the timing of the primary mattered a lot. Like Biden, I don't think would have been the choice if the more primaries took place post-COVID, like in April.
Oh wow, yeah.
He sewed it up right before he had everyone dropping out and endorsing him when COVID was already a debate question being asked. But then it hadn't really hit home in America yet. The stock market hadn't crashed. It hadn't been lockdowns. People weren't really treating it seriously. So then he locks up the election. Then COVID hits. Then we have the lockdowns. I think after the lockdowns, Democrats would have picked someone younger, probably one of the younger moderates. And then you have the George Floyd killing happen and all the protest movement. Really, I think a lot of radical ideas started to find their way deeper into the Democratic electorate. Like you had housewives who saying like defund the police and fuck 12, in a way that and maybe they'll go back to being more moderate in a year. But I feel like maybe post George Floyd, maybe you get Bernie or Warren would have been the candidate.
Yeah, I could see that.
But you have Biden.
That is that's interesting. I hadn't thought about the sequence of events like that.
But isn't Biden like kind of as someone I'm more conservative, moderate-ish?
Yeah.
Isn't Biden like? Isn't it kind of great that Biden's the Democratic candidate?
I suppose it's fine. I mean, he's promising to be the normal president, not rock the boat, not upset people. I guess we can expect, the Obama year policies, and those are, I guess, well on the left, not outrageous compared to.
We made it through once.
Yeah. And maybe that's true. I guess it's an open question how much the extreme wing of the party will have an influence on him. And and let's say he wins the presidency, the Democrats control the Senate and the House. Like, how do you see that playing out? Do you see like Pelosi being moderate and passing bills, or Biden vetoing any radical proposals? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But the question is, I think maybe more radical proposals will get killed in committee.
Yeah. Well, actually, where Biden could be a moderate and actually get things done is maybe if there is a Republican Senate and a Democratic House, and then he's got a wheel and deal. He seems like a guy who loves to wheel and deal. Yeah,
and that's something that pissed off the sort of the radical idealists in the Democratic Party, where Biden said some things about you have to work across the aisle to get things done. And, to the average Democratic activist right now, Republicans are racist, evil Nazis. Like, you don't work across the aisle with racist, evil Nazis. You don't. They would murder them if they could, but they can't. So, but they're not going to work across the aisle with them,
right?
So there's a way that Biden represents like an older, literally older, and more, and he kind of gives me, I spend some time probably. I don't know how worried to be about this growing radical presence in America.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how worried to be about it. I mean, if I worry too much about it, it could turn out to be nothing, and then I'll look silly and paranoid.
Yeah, I have a hard time. Like, obviously, there were extremists in the past, and like, what happened with them? Did we just get over it? Did they not have a whole lot of influence?
Yeah, well, I think one of my pet peeves is that mass education changes things.
Yeah,
and that like we had. Well-educated, well-educated communists in America going back to, some of them were going over to support the Russian Revolution,
right?
100 years ago. But who was going to college to become a communist in 1913? Their parents had money, and but after the GI Bill and the expand now, we just keep on sending more and more kids to college, and colleges have radicalized too. I think there's something about building up. Like, you go to college, you get a degree, and if you're not a STEM major, you don't really come out of that economically good.
Right.
But you did get all these radical ideas.
Yeah, that's different. The number of people who have been indoctrinated.
I think there's a bigger install base of radicalism, and maybe society needs some radicals. It's like good for society to have some crazy radical communists like in the mix, like you're pointing out injustices, but maybe you want that to be like 0.1% and not like 5%,
Right. I forget it's a number of Americans with a college degree is actually much smaller than most people think. I think it's less than 30% of the U.S. has a college degree.
Well, I know that only 40% of people that attend a 4-year college graduate.
Yeah, graduate, right. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head. I guess I would say that at a minimum, they form this civil bureaucratic class almost, like the kind of that you'd find in Tsarist Russia.
27%.
27%. Okay, yeah. And a lot of them are. It's another phrase that I've heard people use. I can't remember the originator, Peter Turchin or something. This overproduction of the elites, where if elite is defined in terms of having a college degree, and we just keep producing these people, but there aren't enough jobs that they can fill that require their skills, then I don't know, what do these types of people do? They are going to get bored or search for meaning in destructive ways, perhaps. Tell them some self-stories about how they are bending the arc of history towards some just goal. But if they were otherwise engaged in productive activities, then maybe they wouldn't be doing these things. So I think,
how much I like that. I don't know how much I like that narrative.
Yeah. Well, I guess you're right, because it's like you look at Facebook and Google, they've become quite radical over the last 5 years, and those people are fully employed.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. You read my mind.
Yeah,
because like if you a lot of Antifa works at Google and makes, you know, 6 figures. With stock options.
You're right. So maybe it's not the overproduction of elites. Maybe it's just pure poison.
But okay, so we got Joe Biden. So here's my case for Joe Biden. Oh wait, okay. Are you going to vote this year? Are you a principled libertarian non-voter?
I have not voted since Bush v. Gore.
Okay, so you're pretty much on that train.
Yeah. However, if I lived somewhere where it would matter, I'll add that. I live in California. I hold radical views that no candidate really expresses or supports. So it's not even about some expected value where will I influence the election. It's really just about, it'd be a drop of water in the ocean. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a difference of perspective there. Like is voting about making a difference, or is voting about like a symbolic participation in the Commonwealth?
I think some people feel that way, like a sense of solidarity.
Yeah, it's like
there's some theater to it. There's a ritual. You're showing up to a location. You enact your beliefs in this closed off secret space.
I mean, my vote, will almost certainly never be the deciding vote.
Yeah.
I mean, I did vote. I've been voting. I guess I've voted in every presidential election going back to 2004.
Oh, wow.
When I voted for Michael Badnarik. Do you remember him?
No.
Oh, he was the LP candidate.
Oh, funny. Okay, wow.
He was some computer programmer that showed up at the Libertarian Party convention and wound up winning the nomination with no prior political experience. I really spammed him all over my college campus. And then I voted for him. And I suppose I felt like I was on some sort of righteous crusade to improve the world, which I guess is the energy that the young kids are feeling nowadays around Bernie or whoever.
Yes.
But they won't be feeling that way around Bernie forever, because I mean, that guy is, there's a limit to the amount of mileages you can get on a second heart or whatever he's on.
Yeah, it is striking how old all the kids are. Do you have an explanation?
Yeah. I was in the primary. I'm trying to be. I don't know if I'm just becoming more moderate with my age, but I kind of almost like some Democrats now. Like they're kind of okay. Like they seem kind of competent. Not too. If they're not too culture warry, I'm like, well,
good enough.
Someone like an Amy Klobuchar, she seem competent.
Okay.
I think she could run the place, and
your vote might actually matter in Texas, right? Isn't that a sweet thing?
I mean, no. Well, if Biden wins Texas is not the deciding state. I mean, I'll be voting for the Republican senators.
Yeah.
But and I'll be voting against my city council, which is trying to go full Portland. They cut $100 million from the police budget.
No.
Because 100 Black Lives Matter activists showed up and called them racist.
Wow.
So now we all have to suffer.
Right. So the case for Biden.
Yeah. So the case for Biden is, well, I think it's sort of like the inverse of the case for Trump. If you take like the case to not vote Trump, is I don't like any president ever. But Trump has given me the most of what I wanted out of a presidency in my lifetime.
Wow. I'm not going to vote for him. All right.
As far as policy goes, like I like his judges. I like not messing around in the Middle East. I like a few different things he did. Like, you know, maybe like 30% of what he did I liked, which is high.
That's a good way to put it. Right.
Yeah, and but the thing is, on top of the things that I liked that he did, he antagonized the other side so much, and he does not have a conciliatory tone.
Yeah.
Like on the day after he won, he should have pretended to like middle class, center left, educated white people or whoever, the people that hate him the most.
Right.
He just pretended to like him. I don't know, like
he comes across as a very impulsive, id-driven man.
Yeah, but he didn't do that, and he's never even tried to extend a fig leaf. I mean, he won by antagonizing the establishment media and getting like the laboring class to come out and vote for him in droves. And that's how he won like the old like labor class in the Midwest, and first time a Republican has won there in my life, I believe, in my lifetime.
Yeah.
But so he did that. He won, but I think like Trump is part of what's fueling this radicalism, and like I can survive.
I think his path to the White House in 2016 was, you know, he carved that path by antagonizing the lefts, you know, and trolling them and shit posting on Twitter. He's very skillful at that. But yeah, you're right. He never transitioned from that shit poster into a diplomatic, gracious politician.
And you know, and Biden just lowers the flame.
Yeah.
And he's not awful.
Yeah, I think it's true. It is suggestive that, you know, all these people they don't last long working for Trump in the White House. They get fired, they quit, they write tell-alls. It doesn't sound like a very nice place to work.
He's not an operator, I don't think. Like he's I think he was a good marketer, a good deal maker.
Right.
But when it comes down to, you know, I was really disappointed that all the libertarian candidates he was talking about for the FDA and to run various agencies, like they never got into office.
Right.
And in a lot of the positions, I don't think he ever filled a lot of the positions in the Plum book. And
I have an anecdote about that. I met this investor in Dallas, Texas, who told me, this is like a chain story. He told me he had dinner with Steve Bannon. And Bannon commented on some of these candidates who were Peter Thiel affiliated, who had been proposed for various roles, such as FDA head and so on. And Bannon's comment was that all these people were just too smart for Trump. And Trump would say that. He'd say, you know, Peter sends in these 200 IQ people, but for the FDA role, all I had to ask was, have they sold a single drug? And, you know, they said no. And so I had to pass.
Yeah,
so, like, as a view into how he's making decisions, I don't know how accurate the story is, but it just goes to show, okay, yeah,
look, me and you, we're unusual people, right?
Right.
Because all the smart people in society, 95% of them are on the left.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you call yourself. You're somewhat libertarian conservative. I would consider myself somewhat similar. I think you're more radically libertarian than I am. You know, but we're smart.
Yeah.
I don't not to toot our own horn.
Well, yeah, you could just say compared to the average person, yeah, we're pretty smart.
Yeah, and in this class of people, you know, there's a group of smart people who are dissidents from sort of the political views of the smart class. And what you want to do, you want to nurture that talent. You want to give them experience. You want to get them involved. You want to build their resumes. You want to have them bring other people under them and mentor them. Because the Republican Party is a backwater.
Yeah. I think about how this changed, though. In the past, it was different. In the 1980s, there was a great sitcom called Family Ties, starring Michael J. Fox as this character, Alex P. Keaton. And Alex was the smartest guy on the show. He was funny. He was charming. I mean, he was also a bit of a tool sometimes. But his defining characteristic was that he was a Reagan supporter, supply side economics guy, and that was not an outlet. This wasn't like he was. I don't know. That was because there were lots of people like that in the 1980s. In the show, the conflict was his parents were hippies, and so maybe he's reacting to that. But I think it spoke to something that was true in the 80s, which is that the Republican, especially the free market oriented Republicans, were viewed as the smart guys in the room. It was like they were the smart ones. You know, they had the resumes, they had the college degrees, they had, and so on. And somewhere in the 90s, and maybe Clinton flipped this, and the West Wing and so on. Maybe it was the social issues that came to the fore, like, you know, conservative thoughts about whether it's abortion or homosexual marriage and so on. And everything switched. And then all of a sudden, the Republicans are now construed as the party of rubes and stupid people and I don't know, religious people. I think maybe it was the religious right that took over. I don't know. But all of a sudden, you're pretty dumb if you consider yourself a Republican. That's interesting. Yeah. And it seems to correspond with the growing polarization, too. You know, Reagan won, I think his second election was was his second or first one was a landslide? Second one was a landslide. He won every state except Minnesota. Minnesota, weird people. I mean, you know, elections in my lifetime have been very close. Right. You know, very engineered, very polarized. And you didn't have, in a certain neighborhood, you didn't have that many mixed neighborhoods. And I think we're having fewer and fewer mixed neighborhoods. So I think there is a bit of a cognitive sorting going on, which makes it uncomfortable to be a smart Republican. But you know, someone's got to do it. Yeah. Which is maybe I should go vote for Biden and like just try to pull the Democratic Party over to my way a little bit. Yeah. Well, there are what they're called never Trumpers. There is a contingent of the conservative libertarian think tank world, and what number are in the journalists as well, small, but who just could never get around Trump's personal failings and vulgarity. Yeah, I grew up working class, so I think Trump doesn't offend me. Maybe if my parents had college degrees, it would bother me more. Right. I think a vote for Biden is very much a hope for normalcy, some sort of return to a Thanksgiving dinner without fights, hopefully. Or at least. I think that's the main case for him. Yeah. But he doesn't. You know, I can't name outside of. I guess there are gestures towards things that he'll do. He wants to repeal some of the Trump tax cuts. He wants to maybe enact some of the Green New Deal, but not all of it. You know, maybe there are issues that he's running on, but they don't seem to be the most important thing when people talk about him. Yeah, I think he'll end up. I don't think he has very strong policy views. Yeah, I think he tends to the center of his party. He's talking further to the left this year than he has in the past, but that's because his party is further to the left than it has been in the past. Yeah, he's a nice guy. He seems like a good person. Yeah. For a politician. I think for a politician, right. Yeah, I mean, there's something about, you know, when I hear him making kind of disingenuous arguments that sound pretty good, like he's good at making arguments sound good. And I'm like, I could tear that argument apart, but you'd probably just shut me down because you are very skilled at public sort of dominance games. You know, that frustrates me about him because I just don't think maybe if he has thought deeply through any issue, he's arrived at the correct conclusion to fit in with his party. And I don't like that about him. Yeah. I think it has to be said, his cognitive capacities are, you know, a mystery. I don't. It's hard to tell for me too. I can't tell what's exaggeration and what's not. He's clearly not as sharp as he used to be because I've seen side-by-side videos of the debates when he was vice president in 2012, 2008.
Yeah, I was a huge Paul Ryan fan.
Yeah,
2012. I was a Paul Ryan stan. I was a fanboy.
Okay.
And I can honestly say I watched that VP debate and my heart sunk.
Yeah, Biden he could masterfully wield statistics and marshal them.
No, Biden was good in 2012.
Yeah,
he was good, and he is not that. He is not that now.
He doesn't have that same level of command right now.
So the biggest knock against the Biden ticket, in my opinion, is Kamala Harris.
Yeah, because she might be president.
Very good chance.
Yeah,
very good chance. I mean,
well, does he run for a second term?
No.
No. Yeah.
He's not going to be capable.
Right. He'd be 82.
I mean, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you've been like, I saw George Bush age in office so much.
Right. Yeah. All those photos were Bush, Obama.
Obama goes gray, right?
Yeah.
Obama just like 2 years in, just like the whole
aging machine. It accelerates your biological age.
And is Biden going to turn into like an?
He's going to look like the guy in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
You know?
Do you remember Raiders or no? The Last Crusade.
Yeah.
The guy who drinks the Grail. That's what the White House does to people.
Yeah, he's just gonna be a skeleton or something with like flesh. 2024. If the polls are correct,
yeah,
Biden will be president.
Yes.
They'll have a small majority.
Real quick on that, what's your take on the social desirability bias in polling? Do you think that did the pollsters learn their lesson of 2016 that people are going to hide from who they think who they like just because they want to avoid looking socially bad?
I don't know, man. I have no idea.
Yeah,
I bet on the I bet on Biden to win. I bet money on it.
Yeah, yeah.
But in the back of my mind, I'm like, I might lose that. What was that?
Yeah, we'll see tomorrow. Pretty exciting.
Yeah. I mean, it could just be very quickly.
Yeah, maybe the bellwethers people should pay attention to are like Florida and Pennsylvania. Yeah. Those are on the East Coast. They should wrap up voting. And Trump doesn't even know. I don't think he's going to win.
Yeah, we'll know. I mean, definitely Florida, North Carolina, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Even Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if Florida goes Biden, it's done.
It's pretty much done, right?
If Pennsylvania goes Biden, it's done.
Yeah.
So, so we'll be able to tell, and then we'll just be past all this elections. I hate election season.
No, I know. I can't wait for it all to be over. I in a way, I hope for a landslide because if it's close at all, either Biden or Trump on top, there's going to be this long, drawn-out process where people protest the mail-in votes, or as soon as they know how many votes they need to win, they're going to go out and try to dig up those votes wherever they can find them, and that could lead to a Supreme Court case. That could lead to constitutional crisis. That would be a disaster for the country.
Do you think the Bush v. Gore case had a lasting negative impact on the country?
I do, because it seemed to make the Supreme Court more political than it already was somehow, because it had all the appearance of just, the 4 Republican or 5 Republican appointees voting one way and the 4 Democratic appointees voting the other. I think in that instance too, I can't remember, did Gore win the popular vote?
Yeah, I think so. Just barely, though.
Yeah, and I also think so just because he won the popular vote, that's set up this pattern where now long-standing institutions question like the electoral college because any sort of check on democratic rule is being called into question. I think that I'm out of Bush v. Gore.
I didn't quite hear the end. I kind of got some internet interference.
Oh yeah, is there an echo now?
No, I just it kind of cut out a couple of words in the last sentence.
Yeah, I think this the suspicion of any institution that is a check on majority democratic rule is being called into question, and that includes the electoral college. And now people are looking to change the Supreme Court. And I think these elections where the popular vote is different from the electoral college vote is part of that. Bush v. Gore, I think, amplified that.
Yeah, I think the institutions of America are coming under like more and more strain.
Yeah.
Which is another reason to hope to think like a Biden presidency might be pretty okay, as it takes some of that strain off.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and a landslide in particular, where I think it'd be healthy.
Yeah, like an easy Biden victory without having to go through the courts.
Yeah. Now, what's different from 2000 was just a single state. That was Florida, and there were irregularities in the voting there. But now with the mail-in stuff, I mean, that could be every state.
Never done this. It's just unprecedented stuff on top of unprecedented stuff.
Right.
And it all has to work out somehow.
Yeah. Now, what is the case for Kanye? You had Kanye listed as a...
Yeah. The case for Kanye is that you don't want Biden for reasons that for reasons I'm opposed to Democrats in general. I think they're hostile to religious people. I think they're worse than Trump on foreign policy.
Yeah,
I think they're more interventionist. Although,
when did the Democratic Party become the hawkish party? Is that
just with Trump?
Just with Trump,
because the Republican Party is not the dovish party.
No, I mean they both have waged wars for 30 years or more. Yeah,
but Trump is more dovish than.
That is the one issue he has shined on. I would applaud Trump's foreign policy. It's been extraordinary how little international entanglements we've found ourselves in, which I think it really redounds to his credit.
I mean, it's I think there's two things that he did well in his presidency. One, I think his Supreme Court and his court picks in general, up and down the judiciary, they will preserve. They will preserve liberty against the progressive activists' desires for years to come. That's good. And then the foreign policy. And he's the first president since I believe Carter not to start a new war.
Wow.
And he hasn't really escalated any of the ones that we were already engaged in.
I do think we go to war in a Biden presidency, or we continue the Afghan war, and he'll send more troops, prolong our presence.
Yeah, I worry about. I worry a lot about the Middle East. Being Orthodox, and just seeing Christians, like ancient Christian communities, some dating back to like the Apostles' times, being cleansed out of the Middle East by like ISIS and other radical groups in these civil wars that we create. It's like really awful. And in Syria, those people are all my people, and I think Christians are a significant minority. And Assad, they never had a problem with Assad as far as I know. But the groups that were starting the civil war and trying to overthrow Assad, some of whom we support, were radical Islamists.
Wow.
And well, I think we were supporting the moderate Islamists, but you start a civil war, you know, and you don't know who's going to wind up on top, and you're going to have ethnically cleansing of people in my communion, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
But you know, the Democrats picked on him. They're saying, first of all, Assad's a dictator. Assad has to go.
Yeah.
No, you don't have a plan. We did this. We don't have to do that again.
Yeah.
And then they're
United
saying
States foreign policy in the Middle East has been one catastrophe after another since the end of the Second World War.
Well, then Russia was going to step in and help Assad. And so the other big thing against Trump is you're a Russian puppet, right?
Yeah.
So if Trump doesn't try to overthrow Assad, they're saying you're doing that because you are in the pay of Russia or something. Like Putin secretly behind the scenes is like telling you to not overthrow this country. And but you know, he gets flack for it, but I still think it's great that he de-escalated in Syria.
Pretty remarkable given every other president in the recent history. And then the one major act that he undertook was so vehemently opposed. Everyone said it was going to start World War III. The assassination of the Iranian general.
Yeah.
Turns out it's probably a pretty good move. I don't know. I haven't been following it too closely, and maybe I'm not necessarily for launching missiles just haphazardly, but he seemed to be a pretty bad guy with an awful track record, and maybe we had tolerated him for too long, perhaps, and Trump took action, and then there were actually not really any bad consequences so far as I can tell. But
he was good at, he's played some brinkmanship, mostly rhetorical, but in that case with, you know, light military strikes.
Yeah.
And he's been good at not pushing over the line.
Yeah. One thing, you know, an issue I care about that Trump is on, he's not as extreme as I would be, but I think we should end our presence, you know, in terms of military bases and troops in these countries from the Second World War. I guess there are strategic reasons for having a base in Japan or South Korea, but I think Europe can take care of itself at this point. They're grown-ups. It's been a long time.
Interesting. Yeah, Europe especially seems like it doesn't need as big of a military presence.
Yeah, and I think they've taken our protection for granted. They've been able to afford many of their social policies because they haven't had to pay for national defense in 70 years. Yeah,
so they get their social policy, social spending, and we don't.
The U.S. Navy ensures free trade on all the oceans of the world and maintains peace in Europe at full cost. And yet, if you look at the intellectual history from 1945 to the present, European intellectuals do nothing but spew hate upon America.
Yeah. I think that makes sense to me. Last thing, last piece of praise for Trump's foreign policy is they're kind of symbolic, but rapprochement between Israel and some of these Arab states.
Yeah, that's impressive. UAE.
And between America and North Korea and South Korea and North Korea.
Yeah.
Like those photo ops in the, you know, with Trump in the neutral zone or whatever it's called, between and the South Korean president and Kim Jong-un in the neutral zone. Like, it's not real peace, but it's the start to a thaw.
I think the deals between Israel and the UAE and some of the other countries, that's really important, and no one seems to care. But
no,
there's a few good wins for sure.
I mean, definitely. I mean, peace in some of these long-standing conflicts, it brings a joy to my heart to see.
Yeah.
Like I did cry when I saw the South Korean president and the North Korean president like shaking hands in the demilitarized zone. Like that, there was just something so beautiful about that. And it might not be real, but it's a hope. And I would like to see that all around the world. But yeah, so the idea with Kanye is that you're not a Biden guy.
Yeah.
But you think that 4 more years of Trump and we might actually have a civil war. And so you're I guess you're symbolically like, you know, voting for this wild card who's definitely not going to be president, but you're saying I am
seems
set
like
up
his heart
with,
is in the right place.
Yeah, his heart seems in the right place. He's a good family man.
Yeah.
He's probably not going to push the more radical Democratic sort of anti-religious kind of bills.
He's very Christian.
Yeah. So I guess you're kind of taking a bit of a chance putting a bipolar person in the presidency. But
maybe it's worth it. Yeah, I think I could vote for Kanye. Why not? Yeah, it's like a.
I want to believe in the dream of Kanye.
Yeah, right. It's a hopeful,
I want
message.
I want to be on what he's on.
He seems sincerely sympathetic to many Americans' problems, despite being this rapper who's worth millions and living this life. I don't know, he seems genuinely concerned about people's well-being. He represents this an optimism just about the possibilities of friendship and love. But yeah, I think he's imbalanced. I don't think he's an operator in the sense of knowing how to run a 500-person organization, let alone a 300 million person country.
I mean, he has the Yeezy fashion line and the Sunday services, you know.
Yeah, that's true. All right, I shouldn't belittle his accomplishments.
I mean, I think there would be a little bit of like more of the Trump kind of thing where there's more show and less organization and execution.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Ye definitely would be someone that could bring us together. It could start this. A lot of people for years have made the observation that Black Americans are more conservative than the median Democrat.
Yeah.
But there's so much bad history between the Republican Party and Black voters that they stay in the Democratic Party. And so Ye might represent like the emergence of the Black conservative as a political force.
A cool Black conservative.
So the what?
A very cool Black conservative.
Yeah, cool. And there was one more thing that I liked about Yeezy. I can't remember it. Something about the dream of friendship. I liked that line of yours.
Friendship and love.
Friendship and love. And God and America.
Seems like a wonderful family man.
Yeah. Oh, Kim. That's the other part. Kim was like, she went to the White House to advocate for incarceration reform.
Oh, great!
And she specifically was asking that the president commute some people that were given very harsh sentences, I believe, under some old drug laws, I think.
Yeah.
And she got him to do that.
Great.
So I think Kim has like a good policy mind. And both these people, I mean, they might not be the top minds of politics, but they ain't stupid. They're solidly above average. And you don't get to their position without being somewhat sharp.
He has a genius.
Yes, I think they would be all right, and plus they're just not going to win. So it says, "I believe in the dream of Yeezy." Over these two old guys who one of whom I kind of like, but is tearing apart the country, and the other whom I kind of like, but he's going to be a vehicle for a lot of things that are going to really make me grit my teeth over the next 6 months to 4 years, depending on how long he makes it.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment, I think. What is the case for Trump?
I mean, we talked about a little bit about it. I think the case for Trump is that I mean, I think I like him even better. I think than I would like a Ted Cruz, who's more of a mainstream Republican. I think they have very similar judicial philosophies, but Ted is like your modal Republican is an extreme fiscal conservative, which in economic time like we have now, I think is inappropriate. I think I do believe in income support for people who are suffering, although maybe not bailouts for corporations. That I don't like as much, but I do believe that it is less damaging for the government of the United States of America that can print dollars to borrow money to give then and to go into debt now than it is for an average American to go into debt to their landlord and not be able to make their rent. And Trump is not a fiscal conservative.
No.
And he's been willing he pushed for the big stimulus deal and he got it. And I think that was very good for a lot of people. And the economy has been recovering. And I think that helped tie a lot of people over. He's going to support judges that I like. His foreign policy is tops. We just went over that. So the thing is, you just have to hope that he's not going to cause an actual revolution to break out, I mean, the problem with Trump is that a big reason why a lot of people vote for him and why I'm tempted to vote for him is that he is the anti-woke candidate. And that really works. But is he the anti-woke candidate? Because wokeness under him is booming.
Works.
Like he's antagonized it. He might be he's opposing it, but ineffectually to make it bigger, so people want him more. Yeah,
there's a negative feedback loop with him.
He's like punching the bear in the nose and then selling people protection from bears.
There's a beast that gets stronger the more you attack it. It's like some version of the Barbra Streisand problem.
So maybe the case for Trump is that you like the things that he does that are good, and you're not that worried about this radical tide that seems to be brewing.
Yeah,
you just think it's like not a big deal, and Trump can assess, or I think that's the case for him. And I read a lot of Rod Dreher's blog, and
I don't read his blog. I follow him on Twitter and every so often I'll read something he's written.
Yeah, and he's like really anti-woke, but
he's anti-Trump, right?
Was that?
He is against Trump, right?
I think he's probably going to end up not voting for Trump.
Yeah.
Because I think of some of these issues of him antagonizing people and also his personal sort of failings, not wanting to endorse that.
I think there are a lot of people who feel that way. The case for none of the above is, well, I guess I suppose without any surprise, I still worry about some of the deeper structural issues that no political party seems willing to address. So the level of debt that the country has accumulated, and then when you factor in unfunded liabilities, Social Security and so on, I mean, the bankruptcy of the country seems inevitable on those tracks. And neither party has really openly faced these issues. I think there's been some nibbling at the edges over the last 10 years with maybe some kind of reform here and there, but no one has been able to do anything, and no one wants to propose any structural changes to address these looming issues. And that really worries me. So I agree with you. The government shut down the economy. A lot of the service sector where people's wages aren't as high were without work. And so in that case, maybe it does make sense to send them checks and support. But if you take a step back, I mean, the level of deficit this year is quite extraordinary. Yeah, you can print that, but eventually inflation is going to kick in. You can print money to pay that.
See, my problem with that argument is that we just don't see any inflation.
Yes, that's true. But it's like Hemingway said of bankruptcy, you know, it's gradual and then all at once.
Yeah, it happens slowly, then all at once. Yeah. Yeah, I think Ray Dalio wrote a series of blog posts on the history of empires and how they fall. Yeah, and one thing that happened, he says the reserve currency is one of the last things that go. Usually with a significant lag over like them losing a war to the next up and coming empire. But the reserve currency
I'll have to take a look at that.
But there is like this you know, this idea that it is possible for like growing deficits are a symptom. Growing debt is a symptom of like the downfall of an empire. It's like one of the later stages of it, and you could analogize the COVID situation to a war, and like the West doing so much worse than the East, as sort of us losing the COVID war to China. Like I think it'll have some of the same effects of the accelerating the rise and relative prominence of the Asian countries, and most especially China.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I really worry about the amount of spending and the spending that we do. I mean, we're basically redistributing money to old, sick people, and maybe there's it is compassion that motivates this. But I worry also that not enough money has been devoted to, let's say, basic science research or addressing things like, I mean, the source of our energy. God, who knows? If we had devoted 1/10 of the budget of Social Security to nuclear and fusion research, we might be living in a completely cleaner, wonderful world at this point. I don't know, maybe that's too speculative, but the amount of spending that we do in transfer payments and so on to help people is just extraordinary to me in comparison to some of the longer term projects we might undertake as a country.
You're so libertarian, Mike.
Well, it's not libertarian to say you want to fund basic science.
No, but to attack transfer payments, that's not something I've heard in a long time. I've been spending too much time listening to mainstream media or something. It feels normal to me now to not to accept Social Security as a given.
Yeah, in any given year, the budget's about $2 trillion, and you know, 900 billion goes to the military, and then 900 billion goes to Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid. That leaves very little for discretionary spending. I mean, if I think about, to go back to the foreign policy thing, do we really need $900 billion spent on the military?
Probably, I mean, there is an issue with American government in general, in that it's very inefficient with the money it spends at all levels of government.
Yeah.
And I don't know that anybody knows how to fix that without there being a big discontinuity, like falling from grace, having a new government sweep in.
Right.
You know, these are the unfortunately, I can't think of any situation where you've had this kind of sclerotic older power that's rejuvenated itself without going through the darkness first.
Yeah, there's a British historian, Donald Cardwell, who wrote about this topic, saying you look at any creative period in civilization, and the first thing that stands out is no nation stays the leader for long. I mean, maybe a century, but eventually some process of aging and maybe bureaucratic gunk working in its way through the gears, but eventually that source of creativity dries up. And, you know, maybe it started in Babylon, or maybe it was Athens, and then Rome, and then Renaissance Italy, maybe Victorian Britain, and then in the 20th century, the United States. But history would suggest there's no way that the U.S. will continue to lead.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think in a period following a big disruption, like after World War II,
yeah,
the ashes are good fertilizer for the next thing to grow. Right? You have you think of how the American economy is structured right now, where you have you know, housing prices are going crazy, and you have lots of restrictions on building, and all the higher up positions in society are filled with old people that have been in their position for a really long time. It's hard to start anything. It's hard to do. It's expensive to start things, and we have a lot of regulations on hiring people and how much you have to pay in benefits and all that. So it's super expensive to start something new, you know, it's just not a very good place to be growing new things. But if you were around in aftermath of World War II, none of that was true.
Yeah,
none of that was true. There was.
I think it was in effect a new nation. I mean, it had the English common law of the United States, and there were some people here, but it was not populated at all. I can't remember the numbers, but
California housing prices were like the same as the median of the nation. Like you could buy beachfront property in Marin County.
Yeah, right.
Like
I mean, on a dream. Move out to California, the sunshine, buy like the Brady Bunch. Even when was that? That was 1969 to 74, maybe. That you had a dad paying for that home and supporting his family.
So I mean, it's kind of a curse because I mean, me and you, we are living in the decline, right?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? If you were in Athens in 350 BC or in Rome in 475, where would you go? What would you do?
Yeah.
I mean, to quote Yeats, I'd sail to Byzantium.
Yeah. Well, did he write a poem about sailing to Byzantium?
He did. I mean, it's not about this topic, but I think that's more about the privileging the imagination over reality. But
like if you think of what a lot of the Romans really did, is that they were conquered. A lot of them died. A lot of them had their property taken, and then some of them ended up surviving and carrying the intellectual legacy of the Roman Empire into the barbarian kingdoms.
Serving as carried on for another 1,000 years.
Sure, I know that. Those are my people. Sorry.
So I'm not going to Germany. I'm going to Constantinople.
Oh, where's Constantinople?
Yeah, where is Constantinople today? That's a great question.
I mean, Constantinople even had a flourishing after that. You know, under Justinian, they came back and retook Italy for a while.
Oh, is that right? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he built the Hagia Sophia.
Right.
You know, Justinian was a very successful Eastern emperor that we don't talk about because of our Western bias. But
well, all right. Have we covered the election? Should we? Is there a wrap up? Are you still weighing in that? It sounds like you're leaning towards Biden.
It doesn't sound like I'm leaning towards Biden.
Yeah.
I don't. You know, I think I would feel. I'm not sure. It's a difficult decision. I'm kind of leaning towards Kanye, I feel.
Okay. Is Kanye actually on the ballot in Texas, or do you have to write him in?
Not sure. He's only on the ballot in a couple of states.
Okay.
But I think the thing that I'm looking forward to, Mike, is that this election has been on the horizon for a long time.
Yeah.
And it feels like with it passing, that 2020 is coming to an end.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be great?
I mean, it will literally come to an end. but I feel like this is the start of
the beginning of the end.
Yes. There's a lot more steps to happen.
I look forward to the decade ahead. I hope it's a roaring 20s.
Yeah, you think so? I think there's reason for optimism.
Yeah. I think if I think about the developments of certain technologies and science, I think we might start to see some of the benefits of the last decade or two of funding and research. So to take one example, I think some of the life extension stuff is going to start to come closer to reality. I don't know. That would be nice. I don't have specific therapies in mind or companies.
What are you going to do with your life extension? That matter to you? You're a young guy.
Well, actually, I was talking to Laura Deming, who's an investor in this space, and she's backed a company that is actually working on extending the lives of dogs, which I think is brilliant. Because, people are okay with humans dying, but, if you want to extend the life of your dog from 15 to 20, that's going to be, gangbusters.
Well, what about cats? I got a cat.
I don't know. Apparently, I don't know. Maybe they have a different biology and whatever the therapy is, it doesn't work on them yet. But the name of the company is Loyal, which I think is a great name for a dog life extension company.
It is a great name. Great name. Well, Mike, whoever wins tomorrow, life will go on.
All right, I'll check in with you. I'm going to ask you who you voted for.
Do you think? Part of me voting, and I understand the reasons for not voting, is I want to just say I want to be like, I want to have faith in America. I don't. I know it sounds cheesy, but I don't have faith in America, but I want to.
Yeah.
Have faith in America, and I want to say like this system is okay and good, and I'm a part of it, and we'll work through this together.
Yeah.
I'm we're one big dysfunctional family, and I want to believe in George Washington and the American flag, and like the
nationalism could go a long way, I think.
So I'm voting. I think I'm voting because I'm voting for apple pie and and John Adams and whatever. and like
apple pie, John Adams, and the Boston Red Sox.
I just want to believe. I want to believe that it can work, because if it can't work, then I have no idea what else we're going to do. It doesn't seem like anything good.
I know. I maybe one last note here is, in our libertarian tech circles, there have always been people who want to exit. They'll flee to Singapore or a seastead or who knows where. I think it's important that people have those exits to take. But if this country is falling apart, I want to believe there's an Alamo somewhere inside of it, and maybe it's the old Alamo. Maybe it's Texas, and it'll be in Austin, or maybe it's Wyoming. I don't know where, but I think I'd retreat to that Alamo first before going to Singapore.
Yeah, it's so bloodless to just exit when things get rough.
Yeah.
But, I think there is a point where I'd exit, but it's more like a communist revolution looks like.
Yeah, that's Berlin Wall to me.
Like I want to get as close as possible to the communist revolution without staying through it.
Cuba, 1959. Yep.
Yeah. All right, Mike. Well, I appreciate your time.
As always.
And I'll see you later.
Okay.